Reba. It's been ages. How's everybody doing?
Everybody.
I'm seeing thumbs up. Seeing people all around the world again. It's been months. It's so nice to see all of you again and some new faces. So I just said hi because I'm so excited to see you all. And I'm Stephanie Carpenter, the program officer. But your host for today is actually going to be Mr. Jim Moran. So I will hand it over and I will let him do the official hellos.
Well, thank you, Steph. Yeah, welcome back. It's nice to sort of see everybody. We have technical difficulties on my end, but we'll get by. And great thanks to our guest today, Ben Blount, who we were lucky enough to work with this past year, but we've worked with him before. So we've enjoyed that on every occasion. Before we get too far into it, I'll let you know a little bit of background about the situation that brought Ben to us for the project. But we do always make a land acknowledgement because of the area that we are on, in essence, courtesy of the Menominee, the Ojibwe, the Potawatomi, the Sioux, and the Ho-Chunk tribes. We wanted to make sure that everybody knew about that. And the situation that I was talking about is that the museum received a grant from the Wisconsin Humanities Council. And that allowed us to explore the Enquirer collection in new ways and with new voices. And so there were 4 topics that we had created, and we looked for the best voices for each of those. Kelly Walters, we have already interviewed. Rick Griffith, we have already interviewed. On Friday, we will interview H.R. Bieshler, which will be wonderful. But today we get Ben. And so the topics varied from sexism and ableism, animal exploitation, and racism. Because the collection, as wonderful as it is, has a lot of things that I wouldn't call them questionable. They are outright offensive in their nature. But having a voice like Ben's to aid in bringing that to light and discussing what those things mean and why they mean that is a really wonderful thing for Hamilton. So we're really grateful to Ben for all of this. But that said, interestingly enough, we did not need the grant to ask Ben come in and look at parts of the collection. So Ben, as I turn it over to you, you had been here before, in essence, with a similar idea in mind.
Unmute. Yeah, thanks first, Jim and Stephanie, for inviting me to the museum and to have this conversation. Yeah, I was there 4 years almost ago now for a residency through Transit. Our friend Meredith, who you might know, Meredith Weiner, working with ideas about race from a kind of more general collection, not Enquirer. And so it was interesting to go back and kind of look with fresh eyes and new resources. I'm going to share my screen. Let's see. Oops. Everybody see a big picture of the museum?
That looks great,
I
Ben.
All right, cool. Yeah, it was fun. I was I was thinking that, I've been to the museum a few times, and every time I go, this is a new picture, I take this picture like, oh, I'm here. It's like still exciting to come to the museum, even though I've been there a bunch of times. I take this picture from the outside of the side of the building, and also the entrance side too. It's like coming back to, just a place where there's creativity and friendship. And so it was great to be back a second time. I'm glad Jim mentioned that. When I did a residency there for 2 weeks and did some prints, one of the last prints I pulled when I was there was this from this block, Bill Bailey's All-Star Minstrels. And if I remember correctly, this is the only block from this print. So it was fun to pull this. And when I was coming to the museum this time, this is kind of what I was expecting. I was thinking, oh, there'll be this kind of really offensive stuff and a bunch of minstrel show stuff in the Enquirer collection. But that really wasn't the case. So it was a process of really going into the back and seeing what was there. Those of you that have seen my work know I deal a lot with typography and language, and I don't do a lot of image making. So the idea of going to the Enquirer collection and working with images was new for me, and like how to work with these things and what to say about them, or change their meaning, or maybe reshape them, or have us look at them in a different way. So I kind of went there looking for these kind of Black images or Black faces and seeing what I could find. The first time I came a few years ago, I had all these ideas of what I wanted to work with, because I was working with type and just finding the right type to kind of say these things. But here I really had no idea what I would find. So it was an interesting way to start. So again, went looking for kind of, Black faces, faces of non-white people, and see what to do with these. And so this one on the left, it's not Black faces necessarily, but it was like not the normal thing you think of when I think of a poster I might find at Hamilton. And the one on the right I thought was really kind of more in line with the kind of stuff I thought I would find there, but there wasn't a lot of this. So in the backs of these posters, they have them all tied together. Like if all the plates are together, they'll be tied together with a string with, if they have it, a proof of the print in the back, so you can see how it was printed. Looking more through the collection, I came across this, which really excited me, just the size of it, and it's still like really graphic in the way that I tend to work. So there's a rhino in the bottom right corner, and then there's these, kind of savage native people attacking it, and one person's being flipped over. This is the A.L.G. Kelly and Miller brothers. This one really just, because of the size, these are massive. And so I really knew I wanted to work with this. Not sure I wanted to do with it, but I wanted to work with this. This is one of the few images I could find of kind of non-Black people, non-white people, to try to do something with, that I could connect with. After looking and finding not a lot of what I assumed I would find, I was looking for other ways to kind of deal with the topics I was interested in. And so I remember when Kelly gave her talk, she talked about she was in the collection like looking for herself or looking for Black women, and was hard to find it. And so there weren't a lot of Black people, but I did find a lot of brothers. So the word brothers, this bros and Oxy bros and Miller bros came up a lot. And so I thought, oh, maybe the idea of brother through the names of the people on these posters was a way to go. And I found a lot of that. So again, I was going through kind of just cataloging, thinking of ideas of what I could work with and what I could pull together to make something interesting. Again, I was really drawn to this this cut and started printing it. I was looking for a long time and taking notes, and spent like half a day looking. I was like, well, time is ticking. I need to just start printing. So I grabbed this one, and it was fun just working differently. Being able to work on a print this size with a roller this big. It was fun. Just the physicality of it was different than I'm used to. And so I started inking this up to print it. So again, I didn't really have anything in mind. I was focused on that one face in the middle that I thought was so expressive, and built this frame and started just inking up the plates and pulling prints of this. Not quite sure what I was going to do with it afterwards, though. So you can see this is pretty much the print I was pulling on the big sheets. I saw that upper left-hand corner as an opportunity to maybe do some text or caption, or what is this person actually saying? Yeah, he's got this kind of terrified look on his face, but also it was just, from the whole collection, this piece really stood out. It was really expressive. There was a humanity to it, even though, you know, I'm not really sure what they were advertising per se. But I was really drawn to this face and kept printing it. And when I first thought, I was like, oh, there's a black face, but you know, we were looking at it closer, and Jim and I were talking, and it's like, I don't think this is a black person, really. This is some kind of Aboriginal person, or we were thinking, is it maybe supposed to be kind of ambiguous? Like, is it supposed to not come from a certain place? Did we figure out, Jim, what we thought this guy was supposed to represent?
Well, I think the thing that I recall is we were wondering if the artist simply did not know much about black faces and decided to create a setting, you know, that was sort of white features with a black body or something like that, which,
Yeah.
you know, that first slide of the snappy jazz combo is rather similar. You look at those women, they tend to have white women's faces and black women's bodies.
Right. Yeah. So it was this, yeah, looking for a certain thing and finding this kind of amalgam of these types of, you know, carved by people who maybe weren't so informed, or, you know, were definitely influenced by the culture of the time and how they made these images. So I thought this guy was just really interesting and stood out from stuff in the collection. So I just started doing some kind of formal things, just like with repetition and color, and seeing how that kind of changed the image or inspired additional text I might put on top of it. You can see on the left, I pulled a print in 2 sheets. So I was thinking kind of maybe a comic book or sections of a story that could be told. And again, thinking of captions or something that can go with this. And yeah, even this kind of story in color. Again, I don't know what the language is on top of this yet, but I just thought the color just gives a different feeling, and seeing them all together were really interesting. Is there just a single line that pulls it all together or what? But just that, I don't know, the space was like really, really calling me. So I kept printing this guy to start. Again, just the image, no real text. When I was at my residency in 2017, I had started this print. I did a series of prints, and I had started this print talking about, you know, this idea that someone is looks some way on the outside, but they kind of identify with white people. So an Oreo is a black person who is white on the inside. A Twinkie is an Asian person who is white on the inside, like either through assimilation or through kind of allegiance. And so just the idea that there's all these phrases to talk about how someone, a person of color, isn't really true, and inside they're trying to be white. So I just put these words together: apple, Twinkie, Oreo, coconut, and I printed these and didn't really know what to do with it. I feel like this is the only print when I did my residency was kind of unresolved. So I just took these prints home and never really showed them or did anything with them. So I brought them with me this time and started adding this image to this type. I thought it was an interesting juxtaposition. Again, that this person is sort of a person of color. Maybe it's a black person, maybe it's not. It's kind of a nondescript drawing of, you know, I assume would have to be a white person that made this image. And yeah, just what is this person thinking about race, or what do they know about race, and what could they articulate about race, and just the way that you know, people are seen and categorized. So just trying to see what kind of attention you get putting this kind of provocative image on these words. Then I went to look for some more kind of typographic solutions. I found this print for a Cincinnati charity horse show, and I thought it was really powerful as a vehicle for type. And looking at this poster, talking about 1969, and again looking at the collection and not seeing the kind of black faces or imagery that I was looking for, I was thinking, like, what's happening in the country in 1969? There was a lot of kind of racial animosity. Stonewall was 1969. There's riots in Alexandria, Virginia, in York, Pennsylvania, and Harrisburg, all around the country. In '68, there were riots. There's all this racial tension and animosity and police violence while these people in Cincinnati are having a charity horse show. And I just thought it was really interesting thinking about what you know, groups of the people in the country are doing in 1969, while in this collection there's none of that is being seen, but what we see is a charity horse show. I mean, a charity horse show, that's pretty that's a pretty big charity. So I thought, let's use this window and change the type and talk about something else that's happened in 1969. So a lot of my posters are kind of partway finished. I plan to come back one more time to finish some of these. So I was trying to find things that were interesting, start printing them and seeing how they come together. So I was selectively inking these. So I was printing the red, but the flourishes around charity in 1969, I avoided those just to leave room for more type. So I'm going to go back and fill in our writer and have him proclaim something else about 1969 versus the horse show. So that was kind of my first stint there. I think it was 2 or 3 days. I ended up being kind of a little bit short. That was the summer. And then a few months later, I came back to do some more printing. And I brought my little print friend to join in the fun. That's my wife, Melissa, for those who don't know. So we went back to the museum, and again, looking for things to kind of add meaning or make meaning with some of the images I had found before. And this is a great collection of names of theaters. So Capitol, Colonial, the Jefferson, the Imperium, the Rialto. And so these are long and thin. They're all one single word kind of carved, but some of them are like, you know, 2 or 3 feet long. And they also have these dates here. So there's a lot of stuff. There was an individual type that was already carved from the collection that I could use these individual words. And I was seeing how could I play with these words with some of the images I had found. So I came across Imperial and Colonial and thinking about this image of these kind of natives attacking this rhinoceros, and imperialism and colonialism. I thought that was an interesting juxtaposition. So I printed some of these words on tissue paper to see how they would align on the image. And just thinking about playing with how to frame that image, or maybe it's a lens that we're seeing through, so we can see the image, but we have to kind of go looking at through the lens of imperialism and colonialism as a mindset, or as just the way these images even came about. More blocks with just names on them, and how could they put together. So again, thinking about, yeah, this collection is you know, not as diverse as I was thinking coming in. Oh, I'm going to go and talk about race. I'm going to find these images that deal with race, where the issue wasn't dealt with at all in many ways. And so again, when you talk about the whole lens of the people engaged in this activity and making these prints and making these and assembling this collection. So you can see they're long words. I could put them together to kind of build another phrase. So these were put together for the grand, majestic, colonial, imperial state. Yeah, I played with color a little bit on this one. At first, I think I tried a few before I got something I like. On the left, they're really bright and colorful. It didn't really match the content that much. I did kind of a mono tone one, and again, it seemed kind of sad. So it was a little variety in color, but still the statement about the state in itself and how it kind of colors what is the lean of the state and how it colors all of our activities.
I think that what's interesting about this is you are, you're imagining what a given word means. And on the one hand, it is simply an innocent theater, but we do have those names for them that we, I think, take for granted. I mean, the colonial being a really good example of that. And what I see you doing is sort of making a statement about what is not in the collection. Like you said, you were expecting to find certain things, and there's reasons why you don't, right? It's an exclusionary thing in the sense that imperialism has very exclusionary ramifications in another context.
Yeah, it was really interesting trying to talk about what wasn't there using the things that were there. So using the tools that we had available, trying to talk about something that was just missing. And yeah, finding these names of the theaters, majestic, colonial, these are places where people go to gather with a homogenous group and get away from the troubles of their world. I just thought it was, kind of poignant to kind of use those words to talk about this larger idea.
I know that, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, keep going.
Well, I was just thinking about your earlier time here. We were working with a different part of the collection, which was the globe. And again, other than a small amount of entertainment, you only had the Harlem Globetrotters to work with,
Right.
which were those exaggerated forms. And God, unfortunately, you had an artist who might have known more about what Black people look like, but they used it to the worst effect.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It was. Yeah. The Globetrotter. I was trying to figure out how to use that. I just couldn't think of something that made sense to me. But this whole collection has just a different vibe. It was lots of clowns and tents and it was very different. I guess we saw some of the images of performers, of like images, like photographic images for records or for music acts, and those were but those weren't interpretations, those were just photographs. And so looking through, there were some other images I didn't show, but some of the circus posters I thought of just coloring them different, as opposed to your really bright yellows and blues and reds. What if they were red, black, and green? So it was still that kind of happy image, but colored in a way that says something different, a way to kind of inject some diversity into the collection that wasn't there through color. It was an interesting task. And I know the other people took different approaches, but I was trying as much as I could to just use what was in this collection to make a commentary maybe about what was missing. All right. So besides the big woodcut that I printed a bunch of times, this is the other one that really, the one on the right, that really drew my attention. This is, again, what I kind of had in my mind coming in. this obviously Black figure here in the middle, kind of entertaining, all eyes on him. And then Melissa found this image on the right, and I don't know if you can tell, but it's printed on fabric like a lace. I think it was a large napkin. And this one was interesting. And so you have that kind of stylized, really like dark black figure in the foreground, but in the back, they're dark-skinned figures with some like some detail in them, and not just a flat silhouette. And so with the right amount of ink, you can see there's meant to be some shading done. And so it's a similar pose as the one on the left, but the audience feels like very different. So it was cool to find this image as well. Yeah, so on the right, he's dancing with obviously a white woman. We couldn't tell if this was the same drawing, but just getting rid of the things on her arms, and she just has a new like head and headdress, like hair. That hair isn't on perfectly, I don't think, on the right, and so maybe that's a similar image, but just slightly adjusted to, oh, this is a pretty blonde, and while on the left, this is kind of this brown skin, kind of amalgamation of a woman. So there's some sharing between images. So I went to try to reprint the image on the left. And we thought we had the order of down of when they were printed. So printing the yellow and then putting the red. And we were trying to figure out how they got this skin color. Was it yellow first or red first, or this is a darker red, but is it like a lot of transparency? But what Jim was saying, they didn't use a lot of transparency then. It was really kind of confounding how, because there were three colors. It was the red, the yellow, and like a green that overlaid. And it was really, it did a lot of prints of this trying to figure out how to match it. And I don't think we really solved it yet. So when I finished my dancing figures of the women might be a little more darker skinned than they are in the original. They did some kind of magic to print this poster.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, but I liked it because the Black figure was really front and center, and there's this kind of glow around it, and it's a positive setting kind of overall, and again, really drawn to the image, but not sure what to say. I remember Kelly in her presentation talked about, as she was working through it, she got onto this phrase of the invisibility of Black women is astounding, I think it was, something like that, and how she was like, oh, that was really like locked in for her. And so I think as I was playing with this image and looking at other things and figuring out what to say, an idea came across to me that I felt like I want to go back and add this to other things and see how it takes things on my next visit. So I don't know if you guys remember, I think this might have been 2017, Issa Rae being interviewed at the Emmys.
Who are you rooting for tonight?
I'm rooting for everybody Black. I am.
Yeah, and I thought that phrase was it kind of went viral, but just that idea of, yeah, I'm rooting for everybody Black. And I've, especially as a kid, watching TV shows and seeing, one person in like a Miss America contest or one Black person in an environment, and you're like, in the Olympics or something, you're like, yeah, I'm rooting for this person because they're Black and I want them to do well and I want them to be seen. And so, yeah, think about the scarcity of Black images in the collection or Black acknowledgement in the collection. That's what I was thinking about for this guy. I'm rooting for everybody Black. So that might be the type that goes above him. So whether you think it's a positive image or it's demeaning image, I'm rooting for this guy. I'm rooting for what he's doing. I see him, and I'm kind of rooting for the Black people that aren't in the collection. So I'm thinking I'm going to take this phrase and kind of, I think it'll help me either literally putting this on prints or just help me kind of navigate to kind of finish the other unfinished prints when I go back a third time. So hopefully in the next month, I'd like to come back and finish this print, put type on top of it, and I still have a bunch of the initial large image that's unfinished, and the poster with the writer proclaiming something, and have a few more kind of finished elements.
Ben, there was a question a little ways back. I believe it referred to the print that was on fabric next to a portion of this original print. And I believe, yes, Jerusha was asking why we assume the images of a white woman versus a Black woman with straightened hair. And I got my ideas, but I will let you weigh in.
Oh, like on the left, like, oh, we're assuming that she's white and not Black. On the right?
Correct.
Yeah, that's my assumption. Just my assumption of, and seeing a lot of the rest of the collection, are they making images of all Black people? That would be for an all Black audience, I would assume. And I don't think they would do that too much. I could be wrong. Yeah, I'm even thinking about their commercials. Melissa and I talk about it all the time, watching TV commercials now. Every couple is interracial. Like, you almost never see even a white couple, let alone a Black couple together. Like, everyone is in an interracial relationship on a commercial on TV. It's insane. And so, yeah, that was my assumption, that they wouldn't be making an all Black image because that would be for an all Black show, which I don't think they'd find the collection, but I don't really know.
Well, and I think we both tend to notice that there are features that tend to lead us in one direction or another. Maybe not so much to say we're right, but we do have to draw our own conclusions as we see these things. And as you say, based on history, there's certain things that you don't see together. You know, certainly not mixed performers, generally speaking, on stage together, unless one is very much in a compromised look.
Yeah, and even the people in the background we were looking at, I don't know if you can see it well in this frame, but some of the people obviously have more like larger, fuller lips and larger, fuller noses, but some of them don't. So I don't know if this was a drawing of something else and the heads were just plopped on top. Some of the heads look a little bit too big for the bodies. And so we're not sure how much kind of, not cutting and paste, but, you know, combining of elements they use to edit these posters and to build these posters. But that is a good question about what were they really intending, and I don't think I could be sure, but it seems like it would be a white woman and a Black man, this, you know, stylized Black man.
Mm-hmm. Well, and Melissa makes the point that the collection feels like the images were created from the perspective of a white male gaze, which I think we could almost guarantee.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so that's where I left it. And again, I think one more kind of weekend trip, and I should be able to finish a few more things. And yeah, it was really fun looking through the collection and like going back there and getting dusty and pulling these things out and seeing how they can be combined to make something that's interesting or maybe thought-provoking.
Well, and I think I wouldn't say we pulled you out of your comfort zone, but you do so much work that is very text-based.
Right.
And yeah, sometimes that's because that's what you've got to work with. But if you don't mind, just a little bit about the fact that a text-based approach is what you've been doing so much of your work in.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is materials, what I have available. I do tend to use what I have and don't make a lot of images, don't do a lot of polymer, don't do a lot of, you know, lino or woodcuts or computer generated stuff. So I'm using what I have, which is mostly type. Excuse me. Yeah, so it was a bit of a challenge not being able to yeah, find what I was looking for and trying to take what I saw and make something that I could connect with. Yeah, it was really, yeah, I mean, I like the first time I went, I was like, I had a few ideas, and of course I was inspired by what was there. But I think I mean I was printing constantly. I made lots and lots and lots of work. I was there longer, but made lots and lots of work. And here I was like, let's see what we have. And, you know, you're getting up on ladders and looking at things. So part of it is just the time of really looking through the collection and finding what to print and making sure it's stable enough to be printed. It was it was fun to work with imagery, even if most of the things will end up getting type on them. They're not type centric, I don't think. I think on most of the things, the image will really sing and be the star, and the type will be the kind of secondary meaning. And so taking these things from the past and pulling them forward with more modern language or modern references, I think is really interesting. So yeah, I'd love to find a box of images that I could pull into my collection to play with. Oh, you're muted, Jen. Oh, I can't hear you.
Playing with the date on that horse show piece, because as you say, what was going on in 1969 outside of horse shows, and what a great way of changing the people's view of what was a current event of the day.
Yeah, it's just like shifting the focus, right? What's the focus of this collection, and how can we shift the focus to all the things that are not being represented or mentioned in the collection in a way, yeah, that uses what's there. I thought that was, yeah, that was kind of the task to shift focus without being literal, because those things were not there.
There is a question for you. It is, how do you know when you've hit the right balance or hit the nerve that you're wanting to hit?
That's a good question. Yeah, I wanted to have some feeling to it, because if it's too literal or lays too flat, then what's the point? Yeah, so on some of these, I think the image is really strong and their image is really striking, and so that kind of pulls you in to begin with. And so, like, subtly playing with the language will help kind of elevate it, push it. Yeah, with these, the imagery is pretty strong. Even the kind of native person, even though it's a pretty simple line drawing, I think the face is really like, what is he reacting to? What's he scared of? Especially when I'm cropping out these a lot of the spears and the animals. It's like, what's he looking at? Yeah, but you might look at this person. Oh, here's a scared Black man. What's he scared of? That could be something that's contemporary. I don't know. I try to play and push, and then maybe go a little bit farther, because I think I tend towards not as tension filled, and so probably try to remember to stay on the side of a little more provocative. But I guess it's just a feeling, then bouncing ideas, like, you know, Jim's in there watching what I'm printing and see how he reacts, and Melissa's there, and I'll show her. If she's not there, I'll take a picture. And like, yeah, it's good to get another person's reaction to see if they get it and they see the association you're trying to make. Not that everyone has to do that, but I'm not trying to have these things be hidden necessarily.
Mm-hmm. There is a question, I think, having to do with the rhino, with the imperial and colonial across it. And Kelsey is wondering if that vertical representation would be representative of bars or an American flag, or was that intentional?
Yeah, I was thinking bars. My first thought was bars. I mean, because I had the tissue paper. So at first I had like a little frame around it, like a lens, and that wasn't working. I X'd across it at one point to kind of cross it out, and that was less interesting. And so I wanted the words to be on top. I wanted to see, so I made it kind of, I was thinking bars with the face visible. I do like the idea of flags though, with the stripes and able to do colors. I think that's a really cool idea.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was thinking kind of bars or some kind of, yeah, something that you can see through and get a little depth in the image.
Mm-hmm. Well, that sort of lends itself to a comment by Melissa, which is the character is not so much scared as he is supposed to be terrifying.
Mm.
And, well, I won't comment on that. You can do that.
Yeah, yeah, the idea that he's a savage person, and so he's in this jungle scene and he's being his savage self. Yeah, completely. And again, that's the only things I find are this person with this terrified or scary look on their face, and then these like in shadow kind of Black people. But yeah, with the context changing, could he be terrified? What could he be scared of? I don't know. Like, I think type and language could help push it in another direction and play with what is that emotion.
Mm-hmm. One of the earlier comments had me thinking about something else in terms of when you know that the piece is right. And as I think about a lot of your work, my guess is that you already know you're hitting the right tone before you set the type. I mean, the direction that you go, like Running Wild or any number of series that you've done, it seems like you've got the idea very solidly in your head. It's just what you want to do technically to make it stand out on the page.
Yeah, a lot of times, like I'll get an idea or hear something, and it's like, ooh, how do I say something about that? I'll get the idea, and I just feel like, you get and you feel the buzz, and you're like, oh, that's it, like that's, and then how to like translate to the page and like not lose the energy of that idea, because these ideas are so ripe with emotion and feeling, and so trying to convey that energy, yeah, it's a little bit of an execution, like how to put it on the page and not make it come off too flat. But yeah, I generally know what I'm aiming for and feel like this is good. Like this is it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know if anyone from the audience wants to unmute and ask you questions directly, but I figured I would give them that opportunity.
I do.
Yeah.
I don't have as much a question as a comment to make. I think Ben is leaving out a little bit about the second time that I joined him. We talked a lot about, and we were watching the Isaac Asimov series Foundation at the same time we were up there. And we were also in the context of the pandemic and wearing masks and going out into the community, and no one else had on masks. And they were often what appeared to be, and this is a generalization, but appeared to be poor white people not wearing a mask who would be most at risk for a negative outcome should they contract COVID. And so I told him, you know, there is so much that has been put in, and this is what I was struck by the collection of making white people appear as the master race and to make women, white women, as the standard of beauty. And I think that what was missing was definitely on purpose. That's why, Ben, you couldn't find any of those images that you were thinking that might be there, because the narrative wasn't about the minstrels. The narrative was about how white people are the best and that they're the gold standard and that they're civilizing the rest of the country and the third world.
Kind of felt like, yeah, it's like it's the default. You don't need to, you wouldn't need anything else in the collection because you could just show white people. That kind of is all you need to illustrate anything that you need to say.
Yeah, like they are their narrative is the only one that matters. That's what struck me.
Yeah,
And I wanted to say that it wasn't, you used the word racial tension. And I really want to be clear, as we are in this time of critical race theory and all these white people losing their mind, that it's not racial tension. At the time, it was white brutality and white domestic terrorism. That's what was going on. It wasn't this tension between races. It was white people asserting themselves in a way that was brutal and cruel and inhumane.
Well, that is true. It isn't. It is not new either, and I think it's that dialogue that we get to have, which seems to foster a better thought toward what have we been doing and how we've been doing it for so long. How embedded is it? And the partial answer is it's embedded rather deeply. So I think that you're right.
Yeah, I'd like to see some Black women come up there and have a specific session on working with those images, because Kelly's ham hang just blew my mind. And then when Ben and I were up there and we were talking about it, I was like, I think this could be a really powerful exercise to do something with respect to gender and race and class.
I'd be more than happy to see that happen.
Yeah, and there's a couple more comments in the to join in the conversation. So Ellen, I saw your hand up first. Do you want to comment?
Was that me?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. That's okay. Hey, Ben. It's nice to see you. I was just curious what Melissa said about going around in Two Rivers and everyone being unmasked, and how that's become a signifier for many of us on kind of where people sit politically. But how did it feel working in terms of your residency at Hamilton in Two Rivers versus when you're in your home studio, you know, in Evanston and Chicago? And does that displacement change your kind of how you feel as an artist and how you're expressing yourself and what kind of context you're working in?
It's a good question. I do kind of, when I'm at Two Rivers, I do feel like Hamilton is like this little bubble. So you go into Hamilton and everybody's happy to see you, and you're working with creative ideas, and you know, you're making things, and then yeah, you leave Two Rivers, and yeah, it's not like Chicago where people are wearing masks and being safe. It just feels like, oh, I'm in a very different place than I came from, than the ideas I was just working with or discussions I were having. Even if it's a tour that comes through, people will come through, and you might have like really interesting discussions with people. I'm assuming discussions they might not typically have when they see my work. And then you leave and go outside and eat in a restaurant, and it feels like a very different vibe. Yeah, I just, it's not a unique feeling. I mean, I've been, we have Indiana nearby too, Chicago, we've been there, and you can see as soon as you cross to Indiana, it's very different in the vibe. And so, yeah, it just feels insulated. While when I'm in my home studio, I've got a storefront, and so people are coming by, and some people might come in and have a conversation. It just feels more open, like it feels like I'm a part of the world in a different way when I'm in Evanston. And then when I come to Two Rivers, I'm going to Hamilton, and then I go home and like I'm on the computer, like watching movies, Netflix or something. So yeah, it definitely feels like I'm less a part of the world, and I don't think I've typically gotten ideas by being out in Two Rivers, while when I'm at home, I get ideas all the time with, I think, the different kind of people I'm interacting with and the different ideas that I'm coming across by talking to people.
Sweet. Yeah, thanks for that question. That was great. And with tech difficulties, I'm here to help as well. So we've got one more question in the thing, and please feel free to unmute.
Hi, at first, I just wanted to say thank you for joining and giving us a look into your art. My name is Hosanna. I'm a student at Dartmouth College, and I've recently been interested in book arts under Sarah, who's also in this call. I wanted to ask, how important is it for you to situate your pieces in history and really do that archival process? So look at history, but also make it relevant and kind of force people to contend with like the histories that we don't want to. So how is that process for you, pulling from the past, but also not being offensive and making art that is more thought-provoking instead of just like offensive and visually appealing?
Yeah, I think that's a lot about what I'm doing. Sometimes I feel like I'll come up with an idea, and then I do some kind of research, and then the artwork is like the research paper or the result of the research. So seeing that one poster with 1969, like all those dates didn't jump to my head, but I'm like, I know there were riots in 68 and 69. And so I did some looking, and I didn't realize Stonewall was 1969. And like, there's so much that was going on then. And so like taking that information in and then trying to put it into the piece. And so it's kind of like sharing the knowledge or research that I've done. Sometimes it's stuff that I knew about for a long time, or you might know about in the Black community, like even Juneteenth. It became popular recently, but we've known about this and celebrated it for years. And so bringing something from the past that is kind of under the radar for kind of the typical white gaze or knowledge, and bringing it up to the forefront so that we could look at it and talk about it. Yeah, that's really interesting to me, and how different these histories that might be factual information get seen completely differently if it's new information for you, if it's seen through a new lens. And like Tulsa, I can't believe that happened. That's so crazy. And so it's just really interesting to me what's surprising and shocking to people, while it's old news to other people, and they've been having to navigate it for their whole lives, and how those two things can interact. And so it's not necessarily, let me tell you about this, what happened on this date, or what this date, or like, it's a peek not only into history, but into the cultural lives of other human beings that live on the same country, city as you, that you are completely unaware of. So hopefully I try to connect it to humanity and not just give a history lesson or wag a finger at somebody, but these are all personal things that, again, people carry with them and get affected by emotionally and often physically, while other people just go through life and don't even see it. So hopefully I try to make some kind of connection to humanity as well, because I feel like that's where that's kind of where the most salient part is, that there's other humans that are yeah, just kind of seem inhuman to you. I guess that's the inhumanity of a whole group of people that you share a sidewalk with or a bus ride with.
And we've got Hans with what might be our last question just due to time. So I'm going to unmute Hans. And...
Thank you, guys. It's so nice to be on a ham hang again. Thanks, Stephanie and Jim and especially Ben and Melissa. I came in late, so unfortunately I didn't see most of your presentation, but the work that I saw was bowled me over, and I'm really looking forward to watching it on the rest of it on the video. But my question is, you described a moment ago that when you were outside of the bubble, in places like outside Hamilton, but in Two Rivers, you felt a different vibe. And for a white guy like me, I would appreciate it if you could describe that vibe a little bit. Is it like being just watched, or I mean, what is that experience been for you?
Oh yeah, I don't find Two Rivers like unwelcoming, or it's not a place that we would like go and hang out and do stuff. So it's not that. It's just I definitely feel like, oh, I'm not from here. I'm not around here. I'm different from the people walking around here. I just feel like I'm obviously different. So yeah, I'm not saying that I feel antagonism necessarily. Yeah, we like Two Rivers, but we stick out in Two Rivers. Like, I obviously don't live here. I'm not from here. And I think it's when I walk around, I think people assume, oh, he's visiting. So it's just that. Yeah.
Is that uncomfortable?
No, I mean, most people, Black people, navigate white spaces so often that it's not, school. Yeah, it's not a new thing or necessarily uncomfortable. It's just not. Yeah, it's there's less ease, I'd say. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. That has been an absolutely amazing. I wasn't here for when you were working, so being able to see what you've been working on and share it and your thoughts behind it, because even if I was here, I wouldn't have known your thoughts behind all your work. So I want to say thank you, and I didn't mean to steal it from you, Jim, but thank you, Ben, for all that you shared today.
No, good thoughts. It's interesting because everybody today pretty much is interested in this sort of outmoded analog way of creating things, and it's very cool, and we explore the tools and the type and everything else, but it does create a historical context of its own, doesn't it? Whether that is the printers or the artists or the subjects. And I think it is nice to make sure that we try to uncover all aspects of it. And I think you do that well.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Yeah, it was fun to talk about it. I was telling Stephanie, like, I'm used to showing all this finished things. I'm like, look at this thing I completed and look what I'm trying to say. And so a lot of these being unfinished, it was fun just talking about the ideas and the thoughts and the plans. But yeah, when you get there, plans change and ideas coalesce. And so it was interesting to just kind of talk through the process without showing you a whole bunch of just finished work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, great, thanks. Nicely done.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for showing up in the middle of the week. I know hand hangs are usually on Friday.
Yeah, we had 56 people join us today.
Oh, wow.
I know, that was great. I will also interject with a couple of, because we haven't seen everybody in this way in so long, I have some notes to share. And that is that we do have H.R. Bichler will be doing her ham hang this Friday at noon, so February 18th. So there's a link, you can sign in. She's doing work on animal exploitation. So the same grant, so similar time periods of work, but with a different idea. And then, so we'd love to see you, of course. And then I know, Ben, you're doing a talk on Saturday through the Book Arts Guild. And so I put the link over there so you guys can see Ben speak about a whole different, it's more about your process, right, on the 19th?
Yeah, and I'm gonna have more book stuff. So if you've heard me talk before, it won't be all the usual suspects. I'm kind of pulling some new stuff.
Wonderful. So there's a link there for you guys to follow. We are going back to more workshops, both in person and online. So right now, our one we've got online that you can sign up for is Heather Mulder on Saturday, February 26th. And that one is filling up, so I recommend signing up now. She talks about Sintra, which she uses quite a bit in her printing at Hat Show Print. So this is a workshop we've done before, so I've seen it and it's great. She talks about her process and she talks about materials. So if you want to start to use Sintra in your printing process, you'll get all the behind the scenes, which is great. And she's just a fun teacher. Let's see. Oh, two big things. April 8th, New Impressions exhibition opens. Ben was one of our wonderful jurors this year.
It's going to be a good show.
Yeah, along with Richard Ardaw and Suki Patel. And it was an interesting process. Not having an exhibition in 2021, we were curious as to what we would see in 2022. So April 8th is when that opens. We have updated our gallery, so that's in process. So if you remember the squeaky floor, it will be gone. So if you've ever been here, be excited for new gallery updates. And the last big thing is 2022 is a 2 Ways Goose year at Hamilton Wood Type and Printing Museum. So we have our regular Ways Goose, which we are aiming for in person, November 4th through 6th. So get your hotel rooms now. And we're doing a summer Ways Goose with our friends at the Amalgamated Printers Association, and that is June 9th through 12th. And we are working on details now. So we'll, of course, announce on all of our normal suspect stuff, e-newsletter and social media, but you can also talk to the Amalgamated Printers Association. So we, of course, would love to see you for both events because it's going to be different presentations, different workshops, different everything. Okay, I tried to do that quick because we just like sharing everything. It was so good to see you all again.
Stephanie, do you need to be a member of APA to be a part of that Ways Goose?
I don't think you do. I think it's open to the public and it is a limited number. So.
Yes, that's true. 100 is the limit on the APA.
Yeah. And yes, you don't have to be a member because there's only 150 for the members and we're a little bit higher. So great question, Hans. Yeah. And there is the one big thing that's different about APA Ways Goose is they have a swap sale and an auction. So if you're looking for letterpress goods, the APA Ways Goose is a really good time to come up here because all the guys clean out their basements and their garages and anyway, you can find a lot of letterpress stuff at the APA Ways Goose.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Ben, for an absolutely amazing talk.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you or you too as soon as you can.
Yeah. Nice to see you, Melissa. Sweet. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Take care.